Well, boys and girls, welcome back. You're going to love this, Grandma. Welcome back to the Suck It Up podcast.
Oh.
We're tired of...
Well, at least you didn't do the F word.
we're tired of millennials being sissy girls, so Suck It Up podcast. We're here with Gam Gam. Oh, wow, that was a good one. Breaking
Oh,
Walnuts.
great. There's a good start.
Yeah, nice rotten one. Let's say you want me to get a trash bag out? Where are the trash bags at?
Right here.
Okay. Breaking Walnuts with Grandma. Yeah, this one's rotten too.
You got to do the Crackin.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Get you these picks out. So, do we call you the tactical grandma? Since you've got two grandsons doing tactical stuff now.
Yeah.
The tactical misfits. I started watching some of that stuff, and it's not watchable. I don't find that entertaining at all. But more power to them.
Yeah.
They're doing some outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you got two grandsons coming from a family that never owned firearms, now doing firearm stuff. What do you think about that? Got a nice assembly line going here, cracking some. Are these English walnuts or black walnuts?
These are English. If they were black walnuts, you'd have stains all over your hands.
Really?
This year we got 9 walnuts. And that was it.
9 walnuts and that's it?
Yeah.
Really?
The wind blew the blossoms off us last spring, and so last year we had a good crop, but not this year.
We had a really late winter this year.
Yeah.
We got a lot of rain though.
Yeah, there was a lot of rain, and that also beat the things to death.
Yeah.
But
So, Grandma, why don't you tell the folks at home how old you are?
why should I?
Because it gives them a frame of reference to how wise you are for how old you are.
Oh.
And I'd be curious. I was listening to this. I'd want to know because I'm in my mid-20s.
Yeah, and I'm 84.
And you can still make it around your home and cook for yourself and do whatever you want, which is a rarity in the United States. You're not obese, which is a rarity for the United States.
We drove 3,150 miles to Yellowstone and back, and
Which is a lot.
my friend is 80.
Yeah.
And I'm 84, but we're good drivers. Once we got through Iowa, it was wonderful, but the trucks in Iowa at 80 were horrible.
Yeah, I-80 is a little rough.
Oh, yeah. She had a new SUV, and I wouldn't drive it in around cities. I'd drive it out on the plains, but I don't want to drive somebody else's car.
Well, I mean, when your first car was a covered wagon, I'm sure that would have been an interesting experience.
Thanks a lot. Listen, Mike.
Oh, I had to get that one.
Oh, yeah, well, thanks for that.
That's a rarity, boys and girls. I don't usually insult my grandmother. She's the only one I can talk to. Everyone my age can't hold a conversation worth the heck.
My dad and mom went on their wedding trip to Colorado, to Denver, in a Model T Ford.
Which is like, what, 1,500 miles?
Probably, yeah. I'm not sure how many miles. I'm not into that technical stuff, but...
Well, I know when I drove to Ohio for Area 5, that was a 7-hour drive, and that's almost as far as Colorado. Yeah. I can imagine it probably took them a day.
Oh my gosh, yes. In a Model T Ford?
It only tops out at, what, 35 miles an hour?
Probably.
Well, the interesting thing about those Model T Fords, if you didn't know the way the clutch works, you let the clutch out once for first gear, and then the highway gear, you have to hold the clutch down against the floor. So your leg is pushing the whole time. Can you imagine pushing your leg for 14 hours?
No.
That's crazy.
Oh, my mom drove Model Ts. She learned to drive very young.
Really?
She loved it. Yeah, well, my
Well,
covered wagon didn't have any cover on it.
Out here, I learned how to drive when I was 12, probably on a lawnmower, and I was driving tractors around town when I was 13. So, I mean, in the country, it's not a rarity still, but in the city...
Well, they don't want to come out on the farm, first of all.
Yeah.
Then they get driver's ed, and that's, well, depending on the instructor. But it's...
Takes a lot of patience to teach driver's ed, I can tell you that.
Oh, I can't imagine. You didn't ever sub driver's ed, did you?
No. I would have taught them some bad material.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Man, a lot of these are not good.
Yeah, we're going to find some ways, but at least they're dry.
For the most part.
We picked up a bunch of them last year. Oh, my goodness. Every day. Of course, the lawnmower got some of them. Just squished them into the ground. But anyway. How come you're not using my good cracker?
What'd you call me?
A cracker!
So the topic of discussion over lunch, we were talking about good old government assistance and how it's destroying the work ethic of the world.
Yeah.
We're talking about housing and urban development and all the medical aid, and especially with the presidential election coming up, all these politicians promising free education and all that stuff. Compared to the political climate when you were growing up, which obviously information wasn't shared near as well back then, what did you grow up with?
As far as communication from...
Communication, the political climate, what was expected of you, say at age 18, like if you were going to be a part of the world, what was your climate like? What was your home life? What did they expect of you?
Well, the thing that my father said, that I was going to go to college. There was no
question
if,
about it.
and, or but. It was just going to happen.
And this was what time?
I graduated from high school in 1953.
Not 18.
And of course, I grew up on a farm, so our work ethic was you get up and do your chores.
Well, that's one thing that I have a quarrel with modern farming is most people don't have livestock. So
Not anymore.
Most farmers are pretty fat and entitled and just sit in a combine. Because there's a lot of positive political climate about, oh, thank a farmer. And I have a hard time doing that when I know many farmers get government subsidies to not do anything. Like if you're just a crop farmer and you have a bad crop, you can just sit on your butt and collect a government paycheck.
Which, if you understand the circumstance of farming, you realize that they are a victim of the weather.
Well, sure.
I mean, if you work like you do in a plant, it doesn't matter what the weather is, you're going to produce.
Well, that's the thing, though, is our climate is created by how well we can sell our product.
Well,
with farmers, they chose to do that, and they need to plan ahead for that. Which is why insurance agencies offer them the benefits that they do. But when the government steps in and starts giving them taxpayer money to not do anything, it's the same incentivize that people who collect government paychecks and housing and urban development. It does not. Well, if you think about it, like if you were a farmer and your combine breaks down, usually you'd have a community that steps in and says, okay, we'll help you fix your combine, or we'll offer you a combine.
Well, that's mostly for people that have illnesses and so forth and can't do it. It's not when they break down. They pay for the breakdown. But the weather is one thing. They still have to market the product.
Right.
They still have to deal with foreign trade. And they don't have the bargaining power that the big companies have. They're doing better at it, but not like the big, well, like where you work, you know. There's always pork belly, but it's different. First of all, it's physical, not like it was when my dad raised hogs, dairy cows, beef cows, and he did everything.
Yeah, right. He was an old-fashioned farmer where he had
Oh, yeah.
a cow for milk, a cow for beef, pigs, chickens, grain.
Chickens? Oh, goodness, the chickens.
Yeah.
Chickens were awful.
But what I'm saying is comparing apples to apples here, government assistance does not promote hard work. Government assistance promotes, well,
it depends on what assistance you're talking about.
This is true. I'll give you that. But all I'm saying is if there's a safety net to fall back on, it does not promote people to do their best. Innovation does not come from government assistance. Innovation comes from necessity of adaptation.
Well,
the combine wasn't invented because the government was giving people money.
No.
The combine was invented because someone wanted to do their job faster.
They wanted to do it faster, and they wanted more land.
Yep, they wanted to be able to harvest more land. And
the farmer like I grew up with is no longer hardly in existence.
No. But what I was thinking on one of my mini car rides was, can you imagine if a farmer's combine went down and another farmer comes to help him and say his goes down, gets stuck, whatever. You will not see farmers out there harvesting corn by hand. There is no way that would ever happen.
No, they wouldn't know how, first of all.
Right.
And a husking peg is something they wouldn't know anything about.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is they would rather sit back and collect the government assistance that is readily available for them rather than get the job done. And that's what government assistance does.
Yeah, it can do that.
Don't get me wrong, I agree with some forms of government assistance, but I would rather there be a promotion of community, because that's something that has basically almost completely fallen off the face of the planet here in the information age and the technological world.
Well, and technology has done some of that too. You have to remember that the combines didn't just show up. Somebody invented them, and somebody had a job designing them, and somebody had a job selling them and building them.
And all those technological advancements create jobs. Government assistance does not create jobs.
No, not altogether.
No. Don't get me wrong. There are plenty of people employed by the government, but they are not doing the job that they need to be doing. That is for sure.
Well, I can agree with that, but when you lump in the farmers that are sitting back, they don't want the assistance. They want the crop. They want...
Well, some do.
Most of them do, that are true farmers.
Well, there's not a whole lot
and
of
their
those.
sons have gone, and daughters have gone to college, and they don't come back to the farm. So what are you going to do? You can't find somebody to load hay or bale hay.
Right.
I mean, work physically, so you're going to have to find a machine to do it, part of it. You can't find anybody to help you stack hay in the barn. It's too dirty. They don't want to get dirty.
That is one interesting thing with the technological age, even out here in rural Illinois. I mean, just for reference, boys and girls listening at home, my grandmother grew up in a town of less than 1,000, right?
Oh, yeah, probably. I don't know. I didn't pay attention to that.
And we grew up in a town with less than 2,500 people.
Yeah.
And even in this town, there is lots of government assistance. There is lots of laziness. And everyone I grew up with played video games. I mean, our internet connection out here is not great, but people found a way to play online video games.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of doing like what we're doing right here, cracking walnuts and having a good time.
Yeah.
Having actual human interaction, they'd rather escape their reality, which I relate a lot of video gaming to the same mindset of someone who's doing drugs. They're trying to escape their reality.
Well, yeah.
And I did it for years when I was a kid because I was not in a great home, so I wanted to escape my reality.
You were in a great home. It's just that it didn't turn out the way it should have.
Hence why it wasn't a nuclear family. It was not a great home. It was not a positive emotional experience.
At one time it was.
When I was 10 years old, everything after that it wasn't.
Mm-hmm. I know.
So that's when I was 12, 13 years old after my parents divorced, I needed to escape my emotional reality, which was essentially everything I knew about a family was essentially gone. So I turned to video games, and there are adults with children who are raising their children with video games while they play video games now, and it's very disturbing to me.
Well, that's the other thing where technology isn't always the answer. But if you don't have parents that see that, it's, and women have gone back. Women are working more now because they want to help provide more things for the family. And so somebody else has their children for 6 to 8 hours a day.
Yep.
Well, that was it was unheard of. I didn't ever have a babysitter, ever.
Your cows were your babysitters, let's be honest.
My grandmother took us if we needed it.
Right.
We needed it. My father they only had one vacation that I can ever remember, and it was because I was married, and my husband and I went down and took care of the farm while they went out to visit my sister in Boston.
Right.
And it's like...
It's one of those things where your family needs help, so you go help them while they have their one vacation.
Yeah, well, now, in these homes where there is a grandmother, she's raising her grandchildren in a lot of respects.
Well, in a lot of cases, that's because she failed to raise her children.
Well, I talked to a lady out in, it was an American Indian woman out in
Grandma, we call those Native Americans. They're not Indians, they're not from India.
Well, that's the only way you can determine the two.
Girls. She's reaching to hit me.
American Indians. Indigenous people.
There you go. Indigenous folk. The ones who get the beatus.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But anyway, I was out in Wind River Reservation, it's basically Wyoming, Montana area. And we stopped at this trading post, and I struck up a conversation with an older woman, and American Indian woman.
There you go.
And she was very, very easy to talk to, and she was willing to answer questions for me. And I said, "Did you raise your grandchildren?" And she said, "No." She said, "I raised my children to raise their own children and get them educated."
Right.
So there are some that do know, and the others are leaning on alcoholism and Gambling, yeah. Well, we passed several casinos, and that money that is given back to the people, they use for liquor. I don't know about drugs. They never talk much about drugs, but she said no. She said, "I did not." She said, "I told my children that they would raise their own children and they would educate them and get them off the reservation if need be."
Mm.
So there's hope for some. But we passed trailers, mobile homes, junk trucks. There'd be a horse in the backyard. It was just sad, very sad.
There's a lot of that has to do with the mental psyche of those folks and being somewhat detached from what would be considered normal life for an American, because the reservations are very odd living situations. I've never had the pleasure of going to one like you have, but being disassociated from the rest of the United States has got to have some very interesting community focus.
Yeah, I didn't get to talk to any younger people, but I would have if I had seen any. But
well, that's because they already know everything. Why would they want to talk to you? Wow, that was a good one. Good Lord.
That was a good one.
Too bad it was rotten on the inside.
You can adjust that.
Yeah, I see the screw here.
Engineer you.
I am an engineer, that is for sure. Well, that is probably the worst thing about young people is they think they go through college and get a fancy degree. They think they know everything. Well, they knew everything before they went to college. Let's be honest. But one thing that I see in the workplace is the ego strapped to someone who has a piece of paper that says they can do something is very, well, it's regressive is what it is. You put yourself in the mindset of no longer having to learn anything, which is disgusting because your whole life is a learning experience.
Well, hopefully it is, because I've learned a lot from my grandkids.
Yeah.
I really, really have.
Well, I mean, just today when I went to a local gun shop because I like to. For folks who are listening may not know, I am a gun enthusiast, and we just surpassed 10,000 subscribers on our YouTube page.
Really?
We get around 7,000 views every day.
Oh, good.
So, I like to support local businesses regardless. I don't shop at Walmart. I don't go to big box stores for things if I don't have to. They're convenient, so if I need something, I will. But especially after Walmart sided with the Bloombergs and their corporate shenanigans, I will not shop at Walmart anymore. But I went to this local gun shop, and there's an old gal behind the desk, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe this person knows what they're talking about. Usually older folk tend to kind of know a few things, but
some of us do.
when I was talking to her, I was like, do you have any magazines for this certain type of firearm? And she said, oh, you mean a clip? No, that's not what that is. One of the biggest debates in the firearms world is the thing that goes into the gun that holds ammo. Is that called a clip or a magazine? Where the correct technical definition is magazine, because that word derives from the old gunpowder magazines back in 17 whatever.
The old ones, yeah.
Where it's basically a big storage room for ammunition. And then when guns have the capacity to hold more than one round on them now, we call it a magazine. Okay. Whereas a clip, if you want to load the magazine off the gun, you can use what they call a stripper clip, or the first bolt action rifles had a clip that fed rounds into them. But the thing that actually feeds the gun is called a magazine. I was like, okay. I explained all this to the gal, and she's like, well, what I think a magazine is like what you read in Sports Illustrated. I'm like, okay, so let's break this down here. And she wasn't having any of it, but let's think of a cache. Cache can mean money. Cache can mean a storage. Cache can mean something on your internet browser that keeps data. Words can have more than one definition. How about well, and well? Let's look at that one for a moment.
Oh my goodness.
That is one thing that I have noticed with older folks, especially with the competitive shooting community being over the age of 55 usually. The old dog new tricks thing exists for a reason. There are a lot of people that just there's no magic number for this age, but they just reach a certain age, they just don't want to learn anymore.
Oh.
And I find that very disturbing, considering
Well, now we have time to learn.
Yeah, I was just saying, when you're older, you kids grown up, you got more money, you got more time.
Spencer said, Grandma, what do you do all day?
Well, I read lots of books and
I read a lot.
Try and learn a few things. But yeah, you're in your golden age when you have time to do these things, and people just, they're so regressive they don't want to learn anymore, and I find that fascinating and disturbing.
Well, maybe they worked hard and they're tired, well, I don't know.
Maybe if they exercise a little bit more, they won't be tired.
Yeah.
That's an odd concept. That's something that I learned recently, is the more you exercise, the more energy you have.
Oh, yeah, and then you sleep better.
Oh, you sleep way better.
Yeah, much better. Much better. Sleep better. Yeah, well.
So yeah, it's very disturbing to see older folks who just decide to stop learning. I just like talking to people because, do you remember who Joe Rogan is? The guy who did Fear Factor?
No.
He's a comedian. He is the most popular podcast in the world right now.
Oh, really?
Every time he streams a video, he gets like 3 million people listening.
Oh my gosh.
He gets more views and analytics than major newscasts because he brings people from all walks of life together just to talk. He's bringing the conversation back to politics.
Oh my gosh.
Instead of the 2-minute bits that you get of whatever on CNN.
or anywhere else.
So
Fox News.
I've always had a dream of having this YouTube channel and meeting people because I do this for fun and I do this for the experience.
Yeah.
And now that we're completely demonetized from YouTube for being a gun channel, I no longer censor us. I don't hold anything back. YouTube is very politically left-leaning, so they limit free speech. If you don't align with their agenda, they censor you. They don't let you post, and they don't let ads run on your videos, so you no longer make money. So now I do whatever I want because I am tired of kowtowing to the political left, as it were, which far right people are just as bad as far left. I think the political spectrum isn't linear. I think it's a loop. You have the centrists over here, and then you move further away from the center, and you go around the loop, and both the extreme right and the extreme left meet at the other side of the loop.
It all comes out the same.
Yeah, extremism is just not a good thing. Being a moderate in all walks of life I think is always better.
That's what my mother used to say about food. She used to always eat in moderation.
Yep. Well, I mean, look at all the great philosophers from Greece and the Far East. They always preached intelligence, enlightenment, and moderation.
Well, yeah,
And then, I mean, you can even, if you want to, you can take that to the Abrahamic teachings and gluttonous and greed and envy. I mean, all those things are extreme tendencies. There's nothing moderate about being greedy.
No.
There's nothing moderate about wanting something someone has.
Yeah, it's called jealousy.
Envy and fear are very, very negative things.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't want to forget morals.
I think a lot of people have forgotten what those are, unfortunately.
Oh my goodness. I think that bothers me about as much as anything. It's just...
I think we all have the capacity to understand right from wrong. I don't know why our judgment gets skewed. Because there's a lot of people that...
Well, because it's something they want.
Right. It's the basic survival instinct.
I have to have...
Well, you know my philosophy on the basic instinct of man, right?
No, I don't think I remember it.
People are inherently selfish and ignorant. If I don't need to know it to survive, I don't need to know it. And if it helps me, I will do it. Because, I mean, we are all, in one form, way or another, we're trying to survive. And we have to be self-sufficient to survive, right? That's a basic survival instinct of any animal.
You know, surviving and living daily is totally different now.
What do you mean?
Well, surviving doesn't mean you have to be happy because of it.
Go on.
Survival and feeling good about what you do is... Survival is just making it through every day, in my estimation.
Just existing, essentially.
Existing, yeah, that's a good word for it.
So, what were you doing to reconcile that when you were younger? What did you do to make sure you knew you were doing the right thing every day?
Well, mine came back to the 10 Commandments and what I was taught by my mom and dad.
Which were?
Well, if you know the 10 Commandments...
Well, pretend that I don't.
Well, first of all, you do unto others as they would do unto you.
The golden rule.
Yeah, the golden rule. And greed is out, and living an honest life, being honest, and morally, which brings up a lot of different things.
Well, that's one thing that I'm trying to pull out of you is there are a lot of people that are brought up without these basic concepts that
I know.
Someone like me who grew up in a German Catholic family take for granted. If they weren't taught these things at a young age, how do we instill them to be as automatic as they are in our minds?
Well, if you think now what's happening in the schools, they're figuring out that they have to help and try to conduct children in a way that they don't bully,
Mm.
they aren't jealous, they aren't mean, they aren't hateful.
So essentially what you're saying is the public school system is now the parent.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that is very problematic.
Yeah, that and the churches have to take over what parents in general, not all of them by any means.
I think generally speaking, as a majority, I think that is the case, though.
I hope it's not the majority, but
From my peers, I believe it is.
well,
Because there are a lot of people that, including mine, both parents worked through the developmental age of like 11 through 18. Parents want to be around for the cutesy years, I find. They want to be around until the kid's like 6 or 7, and then once the real work starts and the education starts, the parents just kind of give up.
well, and one thing that has changed in our schools is sports. Sports have taken off. When we moved, on Wednesday night was church night.
Mm.
And you didn't do anything at the school on Wednesday night. That was your night for your family and you. If you weren't in church, you did something with your family. Now, the church has to go by the schedule of the athletics.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever, it could be
since
cheerleading.
we're drawing a lot of our morality from the church, which is obviously dying between, especially the Catholic Church, between pedophilia and the current political climate.
Well, they've got some work to do, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Is there any replacement for that environment, do you think? Because I know I took those things for granted growing up in a decent family, and I am not religious by any means, but from growing up with that foundation.
Well, you could be.
Well, anyone could be. But growing up with that foundation of morality, I take it for granted that everyone has the same moral compass that I do.
They don't.
They don't. No. They know right from wrong. Every human, it's been studied time and time again, every human knows what right and wrong is. It just depends on.
Well, how many of them have a conscience?
Well, again, it's understood that everyone has a conscience. It's just what is best for me does not align with what your conscience is telling you sometimes.
No, because you want something that you don't really shouldn't or didn't need to have.
Right.
To be a happy person. Well, everybody wants to be happy, but they don't know what happy is because they don't.
The definition of happy has definitely changed.
Oh my goodness.
I guess, how about we'll start there. When you were young, what did you consider happiness? I mean, and you can compare it to now, and if they haven't changed, just tell us that. Because I don't think you're...
To me, being happy is being educated, food, clothing, shelter, parents that love you, take care of you, and having a job of some sort that you like, doing work that you like to do, doing things for other people, makes me happy. I mean, I like to help people when I can. And
so we've already talked about the parenting thing, and that is more broken and deep than what we can dive into.
I don't know how you'll ever change it. That's the sad part.
We have to
Other than the schools are trying.
We have to change the climate of the culture of the average American, and that's going to take years to rebound from.
Well, I think we're at the bottom and trying to come back up.
You mentioned food. How does food tie into happiness?
Because it makes you feel good when you eat it.
Well, I don't disagree. But there's a problem with food that makes you feel good, and that many times it is bad for you.
Then it's not healthy.
So with food, the macronutrients your body needs to survive is different for every human.
Well, that's why there's so many diets, weight loss diets. Because we just want to be happy and eat what we want.
So in the information age, when people are not patient, and many people have lost the want or desire to cook for themselves, many people turn to fast food, which we all know is packed with sugar and
that's what I was going to tell you
lead to an early grave.
When our boys were growing up.
Your 6 boys.
Yeah, my 6 boys. We went to cattle shows and 4-H and all that business, raising cattle, and when we went to a show, I packed food for 2 or 3 days if we were going to be out of town.
Really?
Now, they go to hotels, they eat out, they go swimming, they have fast foods. Nobody packs a lunch for anything.
Well, there's a severe lack of planning in the modern world. I know where I work, the word clairvoyance has pretty much died.
Oh.
There's no such thing as forethought. It is get it done fast and as good as you can do. There is no forethought for quality. So like when you're planning a trip, back before technology, what did you have to do to plan that trip? Well, you had to break out a roadmap for one.
Yeah. Well, no, you got a GPS.
Yeah. So I guess when you guys were planning back then, what was your routine for planning those sorts of trips?
Well, first of all, I had to have clean clothes for everybody.
For all 6 children, you and your husband.
Yeah. If we stayed, overnight. We didn't always all go. When my youngest was...
I distinctly remember a picture of 6 boys being at a county fair, though.
Oh, yeah, we did the county fairs because they were close and we could go home at night, or they slept in the cattle trailers with their buddies. And
the cows.
And the cows were in the patio, tied out.
Sometimes I've seen some pictures of old Stevie Boy sleeping next to a cow.
Yeah, they did in the barn. They would do that. And then, it was a big treat if they went out on the Midway and had food, because...
The Midway?
The Midway was where all the rides and stuff like that.
Oh, the fun part of the county fair.
Yeah. Yeah, the part that they only got to see once a year.
Yeah.
And then the tractor pulls and all that stuff.
Can you imagine if
fun.
Can you imagine if all a kid wanted to do nowadays is go to the county fair?
Oh, gee. I'm bored.
Yeah.
That's what they would say.
It happens a lot. In the age of technology, everyone just wants to be constantly entertained. I find what we're doing here entertaining. You find me a 13-year-old now that would find this entertaining,
very many.
I will eat my hat.
I might...
But I think it takes forethought into doing something like this, because when I was just putzing around in town this morning, normally on the weekends I'm doing YouTube stuff because it's what I truly enjoy.
Yeah.
Even when it's raining, I'll put up a pop-up tent and go shoot. Nothing stops me from doing what I'm truly passionate about. But when I thought of coming out here, I just immediately called you, and when you said the words, "I think we'll crack walnuts," normally a child would go, "Oh, maybe I've got something else going on today." Me, I was like, "Hell yeah, let's crack some walnuts." Because I very much value the time that we spend together, and I think that's something that has been lost in the technological age, where everyone talks via some sort of piece of technology.
Well, these kids are learning. She's got the garden out here, and they got the pony and the horses, and Grandpa is very good about making sure they work. When they get the horses out, they have to brush them and help saddle them, and so they're learning the basics.
Because that is
and they would love to do this. They're little, but they love it.
There's something to be said about the gratification you feel after enduring some sort of suffering, which this obviously isn't suffering, but to some kids they would consider it suffering. Well, when we get done here and there's a half bowl full of walnuts, that's pretty gratifying. It's very primal. I think it's very hunter-gatherer,
Well, then we'd make zucchini bread and put the walnuts in them.
Right.
So then you have the finished product.
And even if it tastes like butts, you worked for it. Even if Grandma forgets to put the timer on and burns it, you still have a wonderful time. So even if it's a negative outcome, it's the experience.
My zucchini bread doesn't taste like that.
No, it doesn't. Your zucchini bread is fantastic. But what I'm saying is...
I know.
It's the gratification of the experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And you see something you've done with your hands or whatever.
Which is not something that happens in the modern world. There are not many people my age building things.
Well, Hopefully there are some. We just don't know about them.
Oh, there are plenty out there. Don't get me wrong, but the norm is definitely not that.
No.
The norm is commodities, buying things, video games.
Let's go shopping and then...
Yeah, television, entertainment, Netflix. Oh, God, Netflix. I hate Netflix. That creates a couch potato out of anybody. Well, when I tell people that at work, they look at me like I got a... I got a vibrator growing out of my head. Like, you don't watch television? Like, no, I don't. It's a giant waste of time.
Well, I do watch television.
But you don't have a streaming service where you can get whatever you want immediately.
Well, I don't have to watch it.
Well, nobody has to watch it. That's the thing. That's what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah. Don't have to watch it, but sometimes I still watch the old westerns.
That's because they're timeless.
Yeah.
You put on Vindicator and I will watch it.
Oh.
What is it? That's the movie about the Hereford amongst all the Texas Longhorns.
Oh, yeah.
It's, James Stewart. Jim, call me Jim.
Yeah.
All James Stewart, yeah.
Yeah. And Gunsmoke and Clint Eastwood and all of his.
Did he finally pass away?
No, he's still, he looks
He is very aged.
rough and ready.
He looks like a cowboy.
He does.
He's very rough.
Yeah, he is. One of the things that I started to watch and I'm very disappointed in is Yellowstone. It's
Oh, I saw that. I saw there's a trailer for that.
yeah. This is the second year for it, and it's about the Indian reservations and the casinos and how the I don't know what you call it, where they're building apartments out in Montana and buying up these ranches and building more places to live and pushing all the animals. And then they wonder why, there are bears in the backyard and coyotes eating the cats and
Right.
all that business. But it's, the language is unbelievable. I can't watch it. I started to watch it and I thought, ooh, this would be a good one.
Lots of F-bombs.
Well, I'm of the dinosaur age when it comes to a couple of words.
No, you're of the covered wagon era.
Covered what? Oh, well, I moved up a step.
Yeah, a couple 100 million years.
Yeah.
We're not back in the Jurassic period.
And you know what bothers me the worst is the girls that are using the same kind of language.
Why is it different than the boys?
Why is it different? Because when I grew up, girls were feminine and they didn't. We played softball. I played softball, but we didn't play basketball in our little bitty high school.
Yeah. Your graduating class of what, 60?
No, I graduated in class of 53 from high school.
Right. Mine wasn't
57 from college.
Mine wasn't much bigger. My graduating class was the biggest of the last 8 years, and it was 112. And that was between 3 towns.
Steve had the largest class for a while. I think it was over 100. Now I don't think they even graduate 100, do they?
No, it's actually gotten a lot smaller. There's more people in our town, but they're not making babies.
Well, it's a bedroom town. I mean, people drive out of town to work. And
Right.
it's there are more families. I look at now the names of the kids playing
Not familiar.
sports, and I don't even know. Probably, maybe 1 or 2 families out of the whole bunch.
Right.
Because in the day and age of more than 2 children is gone, so,
Yeah.
And I don't regret my 6 children, I'll tell you. It's nice to have them around.
That close-knit family is definitely a bygone age by now for most people.
Yeah, that's one of the sad things. And I think the fact that women want to do what men do, and I don't say I disagree with it. I mean, I think they can compete like everybody else, but it has changed the family.
Yeah.
the unit.
Well, I find it kind of disturbing that when families want to spend time together, they think they have to go on a vacation.
Oh,
The
definitely.
The family dinner is
Yeah.
not something that happens anymore. They think they have
Well,
to go.
I have a hard time getting all of our families together because they're all scattered everywhere.
Well, I know. I'm just talking about the nuclear family.
Oh, yeah.
The people think that they have to take their kids on a vacation to experience things with them, which is, I think that's why mental health has been declining more as we get more intelligent as a human race, because we don't talk to each other.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm shocked if a young person, will stop. I mean, if you ask them a question, that they can make a
Coherent remark.
yeah. If
Yeah.
they can talk to you like they, like I would expect them to.
Well, I think that's why people just look at me and talk to me completely different than everyone else, because when I shoot USPSA, all the guys think I'm in my mid-30s married with children. Like, no guys, I'm in my mid-20s and I am very much alone. I talk to my grandmother more than anyone.
Aw.
But that's...
I treasure your visits.
I don't understand why people my age don't take... Well, one, don't take pride in their intelligence. And two, they don't take pride in conversing with others. It's this egotistical, selfish-driven human where they don't self-reflect. They just take everything for granted and they expect people to understand them without conversing. You're supposed to be a mind reader to understand all these children. Because that's what they are. People in the mid-20s are their children. That's what they are.
Pretty sad, isn't it?
Well, when I was teaching in college, I was teaching kids that were sometimes older than me. And I remember specifically there were two guys on the GI Bill that were in there that were in their late 20s, early 30s. And I mean, I age like milk. I don't look young.
No.
Being bald and fully bearded.
Yeah,
So
you look like a little old man.
I was 6, 7 years younger than these guys, and they were still acting like they're in their early 20s in the class.
Yeah.
Which is more, they acted more aged than their 20 and 21-year-old counterparts that were with them, but...
I don't think you ever act like a 20-year-old.
No, I never did. I got drunk once when I was 18 and was like, wow, this is not for me, and then I stopped.
Why be miserable?
Well, I mean, when I was trying to figure out myself on my own, when I moved out, and I was 18 trying to find my world, I was hanging out with people that were my age that every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, they go out and drink. And
Yep.
I experienced a lot of that as being like a shadow on the wall, and I was like, I was the only one with the comprehension to think at a high level, what are you people doing here? You don't like each other, that's apparent. You want to hang out with one another, but you don't enjoy each other's company. You don't talk about anything relevant. You talk about current events you don't understand. And you genuinely don't enjoy each other's opinions. You always try and flaunt your ego at people you call your friends. So again, I ask myself, why are we here? It's a very shallow existence, and
well, that's why there's so many antidepressants prescribed.
oh goodness, don't even get me started on how many people were on Adderall. Kids thought it was, that's one thing I wanted to talk about was, why is it, and I don't know if you experienced this much in your youth, why is it that people take so much pride in their shortcomings? Why do people like to talk about how they suffer? Because everywhere I've gone in my life, whether it was the private sector, public volunteering, hell, I've done a lot of different things in different age groups: art, entertainment, heavy equipment industry, automotive industry, technical capacity, engineering, grunt work, working on a farm. I've done a lot of things with a lot of different people from different walks of life, and one thing they all have in common is they love complaining about their problems. Why do people take so much pride in their problems instead of their accomplishments? Like, oh, I didn't get any sleep last night. Or, oh my God, I need this coffee to stay awake. Or, oh God, the girlfriend last night, she was complaining so much. Like, if you need a therapist, go get a therapist. I have no problem sitting here and listening to this, but we're at work, where we're supposed to be working. And I mean, it's not always at work, but like, go back to the bar scene. Oh, I got this test tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to study for it, blah, blah. Why do people take so much pride in their toil, as it were? Why do they take so much pride in how many things are bringing them down?
See, we didn't, growing up, we never were allowed to complain.
Really?
And that's not a bad thing. I mean, in some respects.
Some respects it helps to talk about your problems, but
yeah,
you should also be thankful.
My parents never, I don't remember them ever talking about being sick. And I know my dad had arthritis, and I know my mom she was hard of hearing, but she never talked about that stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, growing up, we weren't sick very often.
We didn't have time to be sick.
No, and we ate food out of the garden. There's very few preservatives that were a problem now. I think preservatives are one of the worst things for your body.
Preservatives and sugar. Those are the two things destroying the modern human.
Yeah, both of them are bad.
But that's one thing I've noticed of all walks of life, different creeds, different nationalities, is everyone loves to complain. I mean, I'm guilty of it. Obviously, I'm a human. But when I talk about what I completed in the weekend, people look at me again like I've got a sexual pleasure toy coming out of my forehead. Like, what is this guy talking about? Like, you got something done? What? Like, yeah, I like getting stuff done, and I like talking about it so I can learn and grow. I'm interested about your hobbies. Oh, I like to watch Netflix. Oh, we're back to this. People aren't interesting. It's very hard to find.
They can watch their own Netflix if they want to.
It's very hard to find an interesting human being who wants to hold a conversation.
Maybe you're just hanging with the wrong people. There's got to be some out there.
I've looked. And the only people I relate to are 40-somethings with families.
Oh, well.
And they're very much too busy to deal with me.
I was going to say, they don't have much in common with them.
No, I have nothing in common with them. Other than the fact that I like getting stuff done.
Yeah.
But I digress. That's one thing I've noticed. All age groups, all different creeds, nationalities, everyone likes to complain about their problems.
Well, I'll tell you who are probably the worst are my generation, because we go to the doctor all the time.
Yeah.
We have something to talk about.
That's true.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
No, I think that's something that I try to avoid, talking about it. I did tell you about my lack of arthritis pain, though. I wanted you to remember that, even though you have a different
climates.
philosophy.
Well, I mean, that can always be a variable. I'm just saying that there are more variables to arthritis than the humidity. But that is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and tell that story again?
Oh, well, we drove from Illinois through Iowa, through Nebraska, which is a boring place.
Yes, it is.
And into Wyoming, Montana. And I have back arthritis in my back and my shoulders, and I've started taking CBD, and it has helped some.
It's not the magical snake oil everyone thinks it is, but it can help.
It depends on who manufactures it, because there's a lot of fake products out there.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful what you get. But anyway, it has been helping. And then we got to the west entrance of Yellowstone, which is Montana, and stayed in a very nice hotel, and traveled around to the different parts of the Yellowstone. And second night I was there, I got up the next morning. I didn't have any pain or stiffness like you normally have from arthritis.
Did you smoke that delicious indigenous people's peyote? Is that why it worked?
You just don't know.
Anyway,
let me finish my story. And throughout the whole time I was there, it was so enjoyable because I never had pain. I mean, I didn't have back pain, didn't have shoulder pain. I'm going, oh my gosh, it's got to be the dry lack of humidity is what I'm trying to say, I guess.
So what you're saying is the Midwest slowly kills people.
Yeah, it's too wet and yucky around here.
It is amazing how many days we get over 90% humidity here, being in the middle of the country, away from oceans. That Gulf Stream comes up and everything is wet.
Yeah. Well, and our weather has changed too to some degree. People won't admit to it.
I don't know. I remember it being 100 degrees every summer regardless.
Oh gosh. I grew up next to a creek up a little ravine near the Mississippi, and oh my gosh, the humidity was horrible. You'd go out and you'd pick green beans and your arms would itch and the sweat was running in your eyes, and it's like...
So what you're saying, in the 40s it was just as hot as it is now?
To that degree it is, yes, it is. They may not say that in the records, but depends on who's doing the records, so...
I think the last record cold decade was the 70s, and the last record hot decade was the 30s.
Yeah.
It's all cyclical.
But it's also, well, like the geysers in Old Faithful, the earthquakes are affecting them, and they're not, some of them aren't working like they used to because of the earthquakes and
Right.
all the shifting of the earth, and so things are happening inside here that people don't realize.
Oh, we'd never really realized that until we had the technology to realize it. And
Yeah.
is it really a problem just because we're noticing it now?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, it's been going on for
It's always been there.
thousands of years, and it's always been there.
Well, look at Hawaii. They've got volcanoes that have never erupted, and now they're starting to erupt.
Well, how do you think Hawaii got there? Volcanoes.
A big old fat volcano.
Yeah, it's a volcano formed the island.
Yep, that is what Crater Lake over in Oregon. Beautiful, beautiful lake, and it's nothing. It's a volcano. I mean, it just settled, and the water is gorgeous, and now it's a national park. Well, I don't know if it's national, but it's
Might be a
a
state
beautiful
park.
place. John and I went up there, and we got up the next morning, and it had the first snowfall. I thought we might slide down getting out of there, but we managed. It was slick. Oh, but the snow was just beautiful. Oh.
So the moral of the story is go to a dry place, get rid of your arthritis.
Yep.
Might have to try that. Which is unfortunate because I want to move to Texas where it's super humid.
You want to go to Texas?
It's
there?
the freest state in the union, grandmother. Well, Grandma, that is probably one of the saddest things I've ever heard you say.
Why?
That you don't care that you've ever heard of a podcast.
Oh, it's too much. Too much. I can't catch up.
It's really simple. I honestly, to be honest with you, I didn't know what a podcast was until like 2 years ago, and they've been around forever.
Well, then I don't feel quite so bad.
But I'm also very insulated from the world.
Yeah, you don't like that world that much, do you?
Oh, I didn't realize this was a gluten-free beer. Let's see if it's good.
Oh, got some good blackberry wine you might like. It's a little sweet.
This beer tastes like wine.
Huh?
This beer tastes like
What is
like
it?
a light white wine.
Oh,
One of my sissy liberal sisters' beers.
never heard of it. There's so many things now to drink. I don't know how people.
Made with water, rice, sorghum, hops, and yeast. It tastes like a white wine.
Sorghum.
Almost like a spritzer.
Really?
Oh, that's weird. You should try it. It does not taste like beer at all. Which makes sense because there's no wheat in it.
Lakefront Brewery, Milwaukee. It smells like one. Smells like beer. Tastes like beer.
You think it tastes like beer?
Yeah, it does. I don't like beer.
That does not taste like beer to me. That tastes like, it's almost got like a grapefruit flavor.
Why do they have all these breweries where they flavor beer?
Because people are boring and need something to talk about. That's a theory I've had ever
Oh,
since
you already told us that.
I got introduced to when the craft brews started coming out. They all taste like butts. I don't know why people drink them. They all taste bad. It's just something people need something to talk about, and I think that's one of the
Well,
things.
there's plenty of them. Good. I've never seen so many choices.
It's like people who dedicate their lives to drinking wine. It's like, yeah, wine's cool. Just don't tell me the notes of cherry blossom and bullshit that you think you're tasting. Wine is good. Just enjoy it.
I do.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the whinies.
I'd rather not drink alone, but I sometimes do at night.
I haven't really drank much. When I was in college, I was one of the only people that didn't drink. I'd have a beer with friends when we were grilling, but all those guys would, like I said, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, they'd all be drinking.
Oh, yeah, that's what you do in college. That's how you learn to grow up.
That's how you suppress all your feelings.
Yeah.
Just by drinking.
Yeah.
With quote-unquote friends. People's relationships are so shallow. It is truly disgusting.
Oh, it's sad is what it is.
There's no empathy.
No, there isn't.
There's a lot of sympathy, which is bad for the world, I think.
Sympathy is like a crutch.
Yup. I'm happy you said
Empathy is an understanding, is my sense of the
Well,
word.
you're trying to better the person with empathy. With sympathy,
Yeah.
you're just like, oh, it'll be okay. You're not really doing much with sympathy. There's not a whole lot of progress made when you're being sympathetic.
Well, that's because it's back to what you had said earlier about people talking about their ills.
Mm-hmm.
They, if you talk about your ill, the next sentence coming from the other person is, well, I have. And they don't say, well, gee, what are you doing about your illness?
Well, that is very interesting you say that, because usually when I say, like, well, what are you doing about it? People get offended. I'm like, then why are you telling me this? If you're not looking for a solution, what do you look for? And it took me years to figure this out because I'm very analytical. My friends call me the autistic robot.
That's a good one.
Because
I like that.
I have no sympathy for anyone because I don't want sympathy. It's the golden rule. I don't treat people with sympathy because that's not what I want.
Yeah.
I want someone who's looking for a solution, and people don't want solutions. People just want a bitch. So you're right.
They want to complain about Medicare, and I'll tell you what, if it weren't Medicare, I'd be bankrupt from health issues. No doubt. But but that's the thing I notice the most is that, they'll say, how are you? Well, they don't want to
They don't want to know.
No. Because if you tell them, then their return conversation is,
More
well,
complaining.
I have,
Yeah.
well.
What is that? What is it about us that people want to be able to relate to negativity? That is something I'm not a psychology major.
I'm not either.
I am a lightweight psychiatrist to people who need it.
Well, mine is just old-fashioned.
Get over it and pull your
Listen.
bootstraps up.
Well, people don't listen. That's part of the
No,
problem.
people don't speak to listen. People speak to
It's
have
back
rebuttal.
to conversations.
Yeah.
Kids, it's scary. I don't know how English teachers can teach.
Well, they don't. That's the problem.
Oh my God.
I mean, throughout this entire conversation we've had, I think I've interrupted you once or twice just to get a point across, but I don't interrupt you to tell you my point to exhort some sort of egotistical authority. I put it out there as a hypothesis
Yeah.
to what I've experienced, and I want to share this experience with you because that's what conversations are about, is sharing experiences and learning.
Yep.
That's what I converse for. I want to learn something. I don't speak to hear myself speak. I speak so that I can hear and listen and learn. And the reason why we're having this conversation is you have way more experiences than I do, and it's more valuable to me. I do not converse with people my age because they don't have much experience.
Well, I've had a few good years, that's for sure.
Well, usually the bad ones are the ones I get the most experience out of.
That's where you learn the most. No doubt about that.
Well, you should learn the most. That's one thing, is people take negativity and they grow off of it in the wrong way. They don't look for the solution and how to keep it from happening again. They grow off of it as a seed to get more attention. The attention their parents didn't give them. A lot of the psyche of modern, United States I think is driven from just shitty parenting, because if they didn't get the attention from their parents, they constantly seek it from their peers.
Oh, yeah, people are looking for, I don't know what you call it. Did you ever have a spasm in your thumb?
I tell you what, ever since I started shooting USPSA, my trigger finger will do this. It'll sit there and spasm at my desk.
Well, that answers that question. Mine's just like a cramp in my thumb. It just...
I do get cramps in my hands. I drink liters and liters of water a day, and I still get cramps. I think I have an electrolyte issue.
Well...
Speaking of complaining about your life.
Water's a good cure for leg cramps. I know that. Yeah. If I don't drink enough water in a day.
That is one thing I've noticed that has been hindered by my steak and eggs diet, is you don't get the potassium your body needs to recuperate after dehydration. So I take a potassium supplement.
Well, and what about magnesium? It's another one that's...
Magnesium and zinc you can get from red meat.
For calcium.
Really, the rest of the stuff that you could get from a live animal would be from bone broth.
What about minerals? You gotta have
bone broth. A lot of that stuff's from bone broth. That's the one thing. Bone broth and liver. If you want to have a carnivorous diet, those are how you get those minerals, is bone broth and liver.
Broth reminds me of chickens.
Why don't you tell the folks at home your distaste for chickens? Because this is a running joke between that and snakes.
Oh. When I was growing up, I had to feed and water chickens and gather eggs and carry out their poop. Which I didn't do. Dad did most of it, but I would stick my hand in the nest, and the hen was sitting on the nest, she'd peck me. Or if she wasn't on the nest, there'd be poop in there, and I'd stick my finger in there to get the egg, and there would be that. And then my mom, we would raise 100 baby chickens.
Good Lord.
Yeah. She bought them on my birthday, which is the 1st of March. They came to the post office in a box with little holes in it. And we'd go pick them up at the post office and bring them home, put them under what we called a brooder. It was just like a hood with heat under it to keep them. Of course, in March it was still cold, nasty. And of course, some of them would climb in the corners away from the heat and smother each other to death. So you'd pull out the dead ones the next morning. And then they'd grow up to be about 3 pounds, and we would dress the 3-pounders, and you had to cut their heads off, and then you stuck them in hot water to get the feathers, and they stunk. And then when you took the entrails out, they stunk. So I'm not a fan of chickens.
How did you guys slaughter cows? Did you send them to a butcher?
We did not. By the time... When I was growing up, we took them to a locker plant. We did not hang our own meat.
That would be very difficult for Dad and Mom and 2 girls, right?
Oh, well, yeah, and it was not necessary. And if the weather wasn't cold enough, you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, all that. So in that way, we took them to a plant, and they slaughtered them, and they fabricated the meat. They'd wrap it, and they kept it in storage in big... drawers in a freezer, and you'd go out on Friday or Saturday and pick up what kind of meat you wanted and bring it home.
Which is what we do to this day with our Angus farm. So we take it to a locker.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We don't. There are people that hang deer now that are hunters, and I know a family that they only eat venison because they have a walk-in freezer. And they hang their own, and they eat it. I mean, it's not something they just do for fun. But we butchered beef that way. We didn't do any of that. Ed's family did a lot of that.
Really?
Oh, yeah, they did.
Silver wings across his chest. That's an old song.
Yeah, it is.
The Green Beret.
Yeah, they had a job to do, that's for sure. Ooh, that one looks yucky.
Killing the commies.
Yeah, communism was a whole different story.
Well, people are trying to bring it back, Grandma. Your old friend Elizabeth Warren won socialism.
Oh, jeez.
That's the first time you mentioned her name and you thought positive of her. I thought, okay, Grandma, who's been lying to you? Elizabeth Warren is a socialist and she needs to be put out.
Oh, Elizabeth is?
She wants free health care for everybody, free college. What do you think about all these people pushing for all this free stuff?
Well, I know that in other countries they do have, but they only take people who are qualified to go to college.
Well, that's one of the many details that people are missing. Is it's not just free.
Well, they have to pass a test, and therefore the other people that don't pass the test become carpenters and electricians and vocational people that we definitely need, and America has fallen down terribly in having places to provide, and counselors who would say, okay, I think maybe you should try something other than college.
Counselors are such an odd position too, because I know my counselor was trash in high school.
Oh.
I told her I wanted to be an engineer, and she looked at me and said I couldn't do it. And look at me now, I'm the best.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the best engineer in my department.
I know.
Like those people, there's a certain entitlement to a counselor where they think they have the authority over children. That's why I always thought when I I was a substitute teacher for a semester.
Yeah.
There's all these children teaching children. Oh, I just threw shells in there. What an amateur. All these children are teaching children. Like these are not adults teaching children. These are not well-versed human beings that are teachers. These people that made it through college and learned a few things in college are now teaching the youth of America, and it's scary.
Well, I'm sorry to say the younger generation of teachers went 3 months off in the summer.
I mean, most of them get it.
Well, see,
And they want higher pay for only working 9 months out of the year, which is a joke.
Exactly.
And you used to be a teacher, so you know what it takes to be a decent teacher.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, there are still some good ones, but I'll tell you what, it's a whole different attitude. We have, we have all kinds, and you can't lump them all into one kind. That's the thing that hurts the rest of them, because
I'm guilty of doing that.
Yeah, I know.
The problem is the 80-20 rule usually applies. 80% of them are usually the garbage ones. So a majority of them usually are the ones who just complain and don't want to work.
Well, and up until a few years ago, they didn't have to answer to anybody. They were just automatically hired the next year.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. You didn't have to. They called it tenure. If you got through 2 years of teaching, you were in. And that was. And now
that's a union crap.
They have tried to change that, and I don't know enough about it anymore to even talk about it. But it's that was one of the most detrimental things they did to the education system, because.
Well, unionized anything tends to be based on merit and time spent rather than actual skills, and that's what I do not like about unions.
The merits, are just. It's just it's like a few other things.
Just because you exist doesn't mean you're getting better at your job.
No.
Like government workers, they get paid based on their time there, not how well they're performing.
Yeah.
And that's why government labor has always been a giant joke.
Mediocre.
You get to exist and you get raises. That is pathetic.
Well, and you have a choice to do that. That's the other thing.
What do you mean?
You could do that if you wanted to.
What?
Become a government worker.
Yeah, I pride myself on actually working, so no, I would not do that. And I hate the government, so I would never work for them.
Well, see, that's what they would say to you, just like you said to me. Well, farmers get get paid to do nothing. Well, it's the same thing with, if you choose to be a farmer, go for it. You have that choice. And government people, they'll put up with it because they're going to retire and do whatever, Hopefully they'll have some years of fun things to do. I remember when Caterpillar people they got Y days if they showed up for work every day. That's what they call them, Y days. They get so many days off if they showed up for work every day in the factories.
That is some baby boomer stuff if I've ever heard of it. Hey, you get to show up to work and now you get Y days. All right.
Well, that's the way they kept people coming to work,
It's interesting to look at the history of labor unions and work, because when the Model T assembly line came up, I could be wrong, I don't believe that was a union floor, but it didn't need to be because Henry Ford and Henry Ford Jr. paid the workers so well. If you compare it to today's salaries, they make more than me, and I'm an engineer. Factory workers made more than I do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They had better benefits.
They paid themselves out of the market so that they got the best labor.
Yeah.
And they made the best product.
Yeah, well, Caterpillar had one of the best health programs, and they finally cut that all out because the price of health got so high.
Well, I mean, when you go to the emergency room for a small laceration, the cost of healthcare is going to go up because there's more supply there's more supply than there is demand. Or how would that work?
That'd be the other way around.
Yeah, it's more demand than there is supply. There's not enough doctors.
Not enough doctors. Well, they can't afford to go to college because it takes years to pay off their debt.
Mm-hmm. That, and when they do get it into the market and start making those six-figure dollars, the government taxes the absolute crap out of them, so they lose a majority of their salary.
And their liability insurance, everybody wants to sue them,
Even with the disclaimer that they are supposed to read and sign in the waiting room that says that this is not a science. It says that verbatim. This is not a science. We cannot guarantee that we can fix it.
I'm a practicing physician. I'm practicing.
The medical field is difficult because you have people who lie to you all the time who just show up trying to get pharmaceuticals.
Oh.
So they have to sort out those idiots.
Well, yeah, and then the rest of the people saw it on TV, so they want some.
Yeah.
Whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
Well,
advertising for medicine is weird.
Well,
that is why I don't take pharmaceuticals, because it is a money market.
Yeah.
When you start spending millions of dollars on marketing, you kind of have to ask yourself, why do they do that?
Well, my brother-in-law, who's a pathologist, retired, worked for Merck Drug after he retired, and he
Marcus Aurelius.
He says research is very expensive.
Yeah.
Do you think her self-esteem is low?
I mean, every female in the modern world has low self-esteem. It's one of those cool things that you get to complain about.
Yeah.
Not having self-esteem as a girl in the modern age. Modern feminism has not helped.
Oh my gosh.
All.
And it's supposed to do that, you know?
Feminism is supposed to empower women, but it basically belittles them.
Well, whatever it is, I'm not sure I wanted to be one.
It's man-hate is what it is at this point. It's a lot of man-hate and a lot of women that look like men. It's kind of confusing.
It's scary.
Yep.
These are going to nurture your children?
That's the thing. Modern feminism is child hate too.
I know it.
You just go into the workplace, you don't have to reproduce. That's part of the patriarchy. If you want to reproduce, you're part of the patriarchy. You're part of the problem. You're not on our side.
Well,
I don't think a woman can feel successful without having reproduced. Because I know I don't feel biologically successful having not reproduced, and I don't even carry the child.
Yeah, I know.
If I had to think about it, if I was a woman, I would not feel successful having not carried a child.
Well, that's the way we were made. Sometimes it's tough, but.
I mean, we're animals. We have to be biologically successful. It's part of our DNA.
Yeah.
Looking at it scientifically.
Well, I don't know.
What do you know, Grandma?
What I don't know is how this is all going to turn out.
I don't think anybody knows.
No, I guess not.
That's a wonder of life, is the ignorance is bliss because you never have to worry about it.
Sometimes I worry about my grandchildren.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's just a different way of life that I would like to see them see it differently.
Oh my goodness, a landline phone.
Oh yeah, I just got it repaired today.
Well, Grandma, we might as well wrap this up. Is there anything you want to say for the folks at home? A little piece of wisdom?
I just like to talk to Michael because he has all these really important facts, and his wisdom is different than mine, but we still get along.
Well, it's good to share with people who think differently.
That's right.
That's the important part.
If we all agree, we wouldn't have anything to talk about.
Boy, wouldn't we. And on that bombshell, check out the sponsors in the description of every video, boys and girls, and let us know what you think about breaking walnuts with Game Gam. This has been the Suck It Up podcast.
All right. And just listen to my words of wisdom, because very few people do.
Let it be, let it be.
Yo.
That's a good way.